High Priestess, the Council is waiting.
They are perturbed I've wasted our resources. When they see what I have created here, their wrath will dissipate.
It's a new type of birthing pod man?
That, my child, is the next step in our evolution. More powerful, more beautiful, more capable of destroying the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think I shall call him Adam.
What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. And today we have more exciting news about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This movie already is shaping up to be an insanely big movie. Now, it is confirmed to be the final Guardians movie in the franchise, which is really sad, but that doesn't mean that we won't see the Guardians pop up in other films, and maybe some of them will even join the Avengers or create a Guardians of the Universe team. But as for the Guardians of the Galaxy actual franchise, they have confirmed this is the last one, the last film, so they are going all out. The set is bigger than ever, and some insanely huge characters are about to be introduced to the MCU, like him, aka Adam Warlock. And it has been confirmed that actor Chukwudi Iwuji will be playing a character in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as well, and will be playing a huge character. Now, if you followed some of my videos about Guardians 3, you know that a lot of people, including myself, believe that he is going to be playing the High Evolutionary, and it just makes sense based off what him and James Gunn have said that he is going to be playing that character. And today it looks like we have even more proof and more details about the character and what is exactly going to happen with him in Guardians 3. So let's break down what he said in a recent interview. And of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Now, what's kind of funny is that Chukwudi has actually talked a lot about his character. He just simply hasn't said who his character is, but we can kind of figure it out. And in this interview, he talks about his character being very different from Myrn, which is the character that he plays in the Peacemaker series, and he calls his character an extremist in this interview. Here's what he had to say in the interview when talking about his character for Guardians 3. The production is so big. James and I were picking up where we left off. The character is very different from Myrn, and for those of you who don't know who Myrn is, I will describe the character after this. He says, it requires different stuff from me. The way James works with me is pretty much the same, which is he trusts my choices. But at the same time, when I give him a choice, he's ready to push it further. He's making me push myself. This character needs an extremism that I didn't need to really tap into in Peacemaker that I'm tapping into here. Our relationship remains the same, one of enjoyment, mutual love, and trust. Now, in this interview with Variety, he also goes on to say that his character will interact with every single character of the Guardians team, which is kind of good news, but also really bad news. It's good news because it's going to be really cool to see everybody interact, but bad news because he is most likely playing the villain, who is most likely the High Evolutionary. And since this is the last film of the franchise and the cast has already talked about how sad they were reading the scripts, this most likely means that some deaths are actually coming, since he is going to be interacting with each character. Now, for those of you who don't know who Myrn is, it's a character on the Peacemaker series, and James Gunn directs that series as well, so Chukwudi has been working with James for a while now. But Myrn is very timid. He's calm most of the time, he's kind of monotone when he speaks. He has some parts where he gets mad and kind of yells, but for the most part, he's a pretty mellow character. So what Chukwudi is telling us here is that his character in Guardians is the opposite of him, and even says that he has to go to extreme levels to play this character. He needs a form of extremism. Now, obviously, the opposite of kind of mellow and calm is really over the top and high energy. And this kind of all falls into line with the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary is an extremist. His mind is solely focused on evolution. In the beginning of his origin story, he evolved his dog into a creature that had the intelligence of a chimpanzee. From there on out, he would continue to experiment on animals and other beings until eventually some of those animals that he experimented on became an army for him. Then he left Earth to start his own Earth on a different planet. He literally set out to make Earth 2. Now from there a ton happens, and if you want to know what happens, you can watch my video on his origin story, but I've actually linked him to a few things that we're going to see in Guardians of the Galaxy, which kind of confirms that he is the High Evolutionary. Now who do we know in the MCU, and specifically the Guardians franchise, who is set on evolution, who is set on perfection? The Sovereign. They even said in Guardians 2, they don't make babies the old-fashioned way anymore. Women don't birth their babies, they actually make them, and then we saw that in the end, Adam's cocoon. They made Adam Warlock. So it would make sense that the High Evolutionary is actually the person in charge of the Sovereign. This would require somebody who is an extremist, as Chukwudi said. Also, you can imagine that a character like this is probably over the top, and not very quiet, and pretty outspoken, which is the opposite of Myrn, the character that Chukwudi plays in Peacemaker. Now, also in the comics, the High Evolutionary kind of adopts Adam Warlock as his son. Well, if the High Evolutionary is in charge of the Sovereign, then technically the Sovereign and the High Evolutionary are making Adam Warlock, so he kind of would be like a son in that perspective. And as far as continuity between all the Guardians of the Galaxy films, specifically Guardians 2 and 3 goes, the Sovereign and another villain are going to be the main antagonists of this movie. Yes, Adam Warlock is going to come into play. Yes, the Sovereign is going to send Adam Warlock to destroy the Guardians of the Galaxy, and perhaps he maybe even successfully kills one of them. But I think we ultimately know that Adam is not going to be the main villain, and eventually will turn at least somewhat good by the end of the film. That will leave us with a bigger villain, but it won't get the Sovereign off the back of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They want to destroy them. This is where the person in charge of the Sovereign, who I believe to be the High Evolutionary, gets really mad at Aisha, because in the post-credit scene, we already knew that the Council was frustrated with Aisha, but then the person in charge takes matters into his or her hands. But again, I truly believe this to be the High Evolutionary because it just all lines up. And it'll be interesting to see how the Guardians line up against Adam Warlock and then the Sovereign after, because the Sovereign actually almost did kill the Guardians in Guardians 2. If Ego hadn't have shown up and destroyed all of the Sovereign ships, it looks like they would have been toast. They would have all died. Which is kind of where Adam Warlock comes into play, because Star-Lord doesn't have his celestial powers anymore. At least that's what we're made to believe. Now, I kind of think that they're still there inside of him and he'll tap into them somehow, but for the time being, the Guardians don't have a godlike being with them that is able to take on the Sovereign. That's where Adam Warlock comes into play. That's where he switches sides and joins them. That's where the power comes from. Now, how will they be able to take on Adam in the first place? Not so sure. They're definitely going to have to all fight together. Maybe Thor comes on board and he helps them fight him, but remember, Thor Love and Thunder takes place before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so don't expect Thor to be with them. So the Guardians are going to have to come up with some way to beat Adam, and then they're all going to have to face who I believe to be the High Evolutionary in charge of the Sovereign. But let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.